In this video, we're going to take our SPSS file that we just created and show you how to bring it to Mplus. So here's a file that I have. We've got subject ID, interview age, gender, this is binary gender, height, weight, and waist. So the first thing I'm going to do is, just knowing how I have to bring this into Mplus, I'm just going to clean up the data file a little bit. So I think just simpler names work better. So ID, age, height, weight, and waist, and I can leave the cm in there just in centimeters so we know that. But if the more you clean out things here, the easier it's going to be later on for you. So I'll just hit save. I'll call this test file. Okay, so what I've just did was save an SPSS file. So what the next step that I want to do is save this file as a CSV file. So I want to clean up my data a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is do just a little bit of recoding for some of the data, and then also the missing values. So what I'll do is go to transform, Recode. I'm going to use these two, recode into same variables, recode into different variables. You're probably safer into different variables, so I'll do this one first. And what I want to do with gender is make it a numerical value. So in the original data set, it's a binary variable of male and female. And what I want to do with it is just make it binary. And the way that I do this is just to go, I label it female, and then old and new values. And the reason I'm going to label it as female is if the old value is F, the new value is going to be 1. So the person has femaleness. If the old value is M, then the new value is going to be 0. So lacking femaleness. So if I hit continue, I'm creating a new variable, and I did the old and new values. Okay. So now I have a new variable down here, a female. You see, if it's a male, it's labeled 0. If it's a female, it's labeled 1. So that helps clean up the data a little bit. And then also with this new naming system, I know exactly what the code stands for. Sometimes there's gender and there are 1s and 2s or different numbers, and you're not sure what a 1 means and what a 2 means. So in this situation, it makes it a little bit simpler. And then the other thing I'm going to do is just kind of take care of some missing data. So I'm going to go again to transform. This time I'm going to take a risk, go recode into same variables, and I'm going to take age, height, weight, and waist, and I can do these all at once, old and new values. If the value is system missing, then the new value is going to be -999. So that's just basically going to, any missing value, it's going to give a value of -999. I'll tell Mplus what to do with -999s in a little bit. So I'll add that and run that. So now in these same variables, anything that was missing is a -999. I may not have missing data in this data set though. So finally what I'm going to do is just get rid of this original gender. This is what I want to transfer over to Mplus. So I'll go save as. Mplus can't use SPSS files, so it has to use some other type of format. I tend to like the CSV files. You can use DAT or whatever text files. So I'm going to bring over this CSV. And then here's the most important step. This box here, write variable names to file, uncheck that box. Mplus doesn't need to know the variable names, it just wants the numbers that are in the variables. So make sure you uncheck that box. I'm going to save this file. I'll call it test file. .csv, And again, this write variable names to file unchecked. Okay. So now I've just saved that file, and what I'm going to do in Mplus is just change some syntax around. So I just pulled up a file. You can pull up whatever old file you have. I'll share some files with you. I'm going to first save this file in the same place that I put the actual data file. Because what I want to have it'll make it easier if it's in the same folder as where the data file's at. And I'll show you that in a second. Alright, so in an Mplus file you've got this title, test to bring in data. All I'm going to do with this is just title what I'm doing. You don't even have to have this syntax in the top. It's nice to know what you did with this file though. The file, if you put it in another folder, you have to write out where exactly that folder is. If it's in the same folder, you can put this test, and you don't need the path where this file is saved. It knows it's looking in the same folder where this file here is saved. Okay, the variable names, what I'm going to do with this is just go to variable view. I go like this in SPSS, and this is one of the reasons I cleaned it up in the first place. Copy that, and then here are my variable names. And you always end a command with a semicolon. So my variable names are ID, age, height, weight, waist, and female. You can clean this up if you wanted to. I won't spend too much time with this. But so here are the names. And then what I'll do for my model is usually just do a simple statement, a correlation. So I'll go age with height, weight, waist, and then semicolon at the end. So this with statement, and what I usually do is, and I didn't do it here, is capitalize these statements. So, and then what I also need is a use variable commands. So what I'm telling Mplus is here are names is all of the variable names. The use variables are what I'm going to actually use in my analysis. So, and then I just run a model. The very first model is just a correlation just to make sure the data file is brought in correctly. It's quite likely I'm going to get some errors in this running of this data file, but let's see what happens. Okay. It didn't have an error file, which is kind of surprising. So it shows me the output and input reading terminated normally. So that just tells me that I got the data file to work, and it's probably a poor fitting model, as you can see. But I'm just looking at correlations between the variables and to see what those are. So now with this Mplus file, now that I know the data is in here, I can start creating a more complicated model and just change this model statement around. So everything on top of it will stay exactly the same, and I'll just modify the model statement.